Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for joining me once again and welcome back. In today's video, I'm actually going to do something different. Before, I know I did mention I promised I was going to talk about this collection update, including War Moon Lord. That is coming, but the fact remains that with some of the releases I got in that haul, I haven't listened to them enough yet to feel that I can accurately describe them. So I'm going to put that on hold now and just talk about something that I do know. So I'm actually going back to the series known as Death Metal Vinyl. So I've done 2 previous videos on this, just going down my death metal collection, vinyl collection, in alphabetical order. So that's what I'll be doing today. You'll remember if you haven't checked out volumes 1 and 2, I'll leave links in the description so you can catch up. And basically in the last one, I was up to C. So the last record I talked about, death metal record, was Cemetery Urn with Barbaric Retribution. So today I'm going into the D's, and you will see that I'm actually going to cover a few letters because I don't own that many death metal albums on vinyl. There's a lot more heavy metal and black metal, but you know, that's just how it is. But I still have quite a few to talk about, so that's what I'll do today. Today's video consists of 4 vinyls. Two of the 4 I've shown in collection updates before, but as is the case often, some people join the channel later, so maybe they haven't seen the videos. So in any event, I'm just going down the collection in alphabetical order. So enough rambling, we'll get straight into it. So starting with the D's today, first record I'm going to show you, this is DEICIDE with Luck of the Corpse. This one was re-released by Hell's Headbangers. So you can see here there's the hype sticker. Just take it out of its cover. Okay, so first of all, very iconic, sort of eerie, haunting cover. Really like that. It's very striking. And on the back there, you've got this sort of a horror kind of cartoon work, which I also really like. So DEICIDE need no introduction. Sort of legendary underground death metal band from the USA, and they've been one of those bands, like a sort of staple part of the scene ever since the 80s. They've been around for ages, like I think since 1986, something like that. So definitely one of the forefathers of death metal. And I feel that they haven't got as much credit as they have deserved, really. Like, they are a legendary band, but they've always remained in the underground, and but still like very influential and respected. So before I go into describing this, I'll just show you this hype sticker. This will basically summarize what's in there. So totally classic debut album by these American underground legends. The very first album released on a then young Relapse Records in 1991. This is supreme thrashing death that sounds as fresh today as it did then, and now finally back on regular vinyl LP since its original release. So yeah, absolutely right, that description. This sounds completely fresh, not dated at all. And what I like about this band is they are unique. Like, in a death metal world where there's so many clones and copycats, you know, you say, oh, this band sounds like that band and so on. This band really, they do sound unique, and that's what I like about them. Even though they're very old school, like as the hype sticker said, it's thrashing death, so it does have a strong thrash metal influence, like death thrash or thrash death, however you put it. But it's just unique the way they play. Like and as the label said, it really does sound fresh. Like there's the perfect level of rawness on this album. The drums are really clattery. The riffs are just chugging, you know, it's like these chugging, thrashy riffs, loads of hooks to reel you in, you know, with all of the songs. And they also have a variety of tempos. Like, often it's like sort of galloping mid-pace, but then they have some slow, doomy interludes, you know, it's just like breakdowns, those doomy breakdowns, and also like interesting melodies and some really off-the-wall stuff. But like, if you just like raw, old-school, thrashy death metal, you're gonna love this album. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, so I don't need to say too much. But yeah, I've listened to this one a lot lately, and I'm just getting into it more and more. That's the thing, it's like, you know, layers of an onion. Sometimes you remove the peel and you just discover it more and more, but absolutely fantastic. No bad songs on this, honestly. But, you know, some of my favorites in terms of ones that stand out. Like side A, when I was listening to it today, like every song had some standout, noteworthy moments. But like, absolute favorite songs on the album, Fading Survival, Haunted Cerebellum, Decrepit Coma, and what's the other one? I think Birth by Radiation. But like, all absolutely fantastic. And I noted today, like with Psychedelic Warriors, that's on side B, there's just some really sort of like jazzy, off the wall melodic influences going on there. So like, yes, it is primarily like a death thrash, but at the same time, they incorporate, you know, different influences into the music, which just sound really interesting. So it has these little quirky moments to make it not so monotonous as a lot of bands of this genre can be. So yeah, absolutely brilliant album, and I think this band, they're just fantastic. So I've got to get hold of more of their stuff. Like the only other album I own by them is Ghostly White, which is different again. But yeah, in terms of underground, early death metal, old school stuff, you can't go wrong with this. So just show you the inside. Right, so it comes with this really nice insert, lyrics and more cartoon horror-like pictures, which are fantastic. This kind of reminds me of Evil Dead, that kind of aesthetic. And oh, by the way, this band has always had that sort of like horror theme going with their music, so it kind of made sense, really. Now, the vinyl itself is absolutely stunning. There were options to get it on just plain black or different colors. I went for the sky blue one, sort of marble white sky blue. But yeah, really nice. And I love this label. Look at that. That is very Evil Dead to me as well. And like on that note, Evil Dead is my favorite horror film of all time. So anything which embraces the aesthetics of Evil Dead, I have a lot of respect for it. Yeah, here, this label, it's got the logo. Not sure if you can see that, but yeah, absolutely beautiful vinyl. And when they release these color variants, I always think, yeah, you might as well go for it. Like, yeah, you can get plain black. Plain black suits some albums, but I thought for this one, like, that's absolutely brilliant. It just fits the cover art so well. So, yeah, really like it. And on that note, you know, talking about death metal, there's a lot of great death metal bands from all over the world, like different scenes. You know, you have the Swedish scene, and just bands from various countries. And I'm just gonna... Yeah, like there's noteworthy death metal bands from all over the globe, definitely. But in terms of, for me anyway, in terms of underground death metal, you just can't beat those US, like American bands, like so fantastic. Like you think of other bands, like bands in this vein also, like Nunslaughter, Cyanide, Imprecation, stuff like that. It's just got this darkness and underground aesthetic and honesty, which I really appreciate. So if you haven't heard this band for any reason whatsoever, definitely check them out. It sounds fresh, it sounds original, but it came out in 1991. Brilliant. So that's Deceased with Luck of the Corpse. All right. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is an album I've never spoken about on this channel, so something completely fresh. But I will just start by saying this. It's one of my favorite death metal albums of all time. Yep. This is, of course, DEICIDE with their legendary debut album, DEICIDE. So self-titled, portrait of the band on the back there. Yep, so this album obviously needs no introduction. I'm sure if you're a death metal fan, you're familiar with this album. It is absolutely legendary. Like, I love this album. When I first heard this band, it was when I was about 16 years old back in the day, and the first album I heard was Legion. I love that album, and this one came a bit later for me, but those two are my favorites. This one and Legion, the two best albums. To me, they're just perfect 10 out of 10 death metal albums. Like, this is fantastic. Like, starting from the artwork and everything, the logo, just absolutely brilliant. And musically, it's unique. I saw that when I did that innovative albums thread, Gordon actually on his channel, he included this album in his list of innovative albums, and I thought, I agree 100%, like definitely. Because what's interesting about DEICIDE is everyone's familiar with them, they're very famous, but they do have a trademark sound, like especially like these early albums, like no band really sounds like them. I think like sometimes there's bands kind of similar, like Rebellion or Crisian, sometimes sound like DEICIDE, except in terms of this first album, it's just unique. It's in a league of its own, just like raw, wicked, guitar-driven death metal, like very clattery, the percussion's in the foreground, and like it's amazing because it just pummels you. There's all these blast beats and like percussive assaults and everything, but at the same time they then suddenly just shift into these incredibly catchy grooves which get your head nodding, definitely. So I just love this album, absolutely perfect. And of course Glenn Benton's vocals are unique. He does those double track vocals where it's like the high pitched screams and the guttural growls, you know, but it sounds absolutely possessed, brilliant, and so angry as well. So like this album just like fills me with energy whenever I listen to it. And it's quite funny, you know, when I go out running, I sometimes compile best of songs by bands, so like the best of DEICIDE, and I'll choose my favorite songs from certain albums. To start that compilation, I always include this album and every single song, because that's how good it is. It's 10 out of 10. I love every single track on this album. Just blistering, raw, wicked, energetic, in your face. It's just absolutely brilliant. So love this album. Yeah, so you've got Lunatic of God's Creation, which is of course about Charles Manson. Like a tragic, very interesting story, and like that's like, imagine back in the day when this was first heard, it would have just blown people's minds. Like, it sounded so wicked and evil. Also, track 2, Sacrificial Suicide, that's one of my favorite DEICIDE tracks of all times. That's got one of those aforementioned grooves that they shift into, and like, it's just so incredibly catchy. Some blistering guitar solos in that. Then Oblivious to Evil, they slow down a bit with a sort of catchy mid-paced riff, but it is so good. I love that song, and that's of course about the horror film Evil Dead. As I mentioned, that's my favorite film, so it gets points for me there. Just fantastic. And then Dead by Dawn, also about Evil Dead. Like, some just amazing time changes in that song and wicked guitar solos. And the chorus is like just very catchy and possessed, like, you know, with the double track vocals screaming Dead by Dawn. Blaspherion, it's got this like really weird yet so catchy stop start riff in the chorus, like Die Blaspherion, like absolutely great. I love that. And then going over to side B, my favorite track on the album is DEICIDE, because again it contains those aforementioned time changes where they're just pummeling you, and then they shift into these incredibly groovy, catchy moments which get your head tapping. There's blistering, possessed guitar solos in that song. It's great. Carnage in the Temple of the Damned, amazing, like vocal patterns in that song, and just so catchy. Lyrics are very memorable. It's great. Now Mephistopheles, awesome song. Like, what I like about that is the vocals sound so frantic in it. Like, you hear that part in the middle of the song where the riff's getting going, and like you hear the way the vocals are barked out. Like, it just sounds so frantic and possessed. Like, it's brilliant. So Mephistopheles is great. And then Day of Darkness, very evil and haunting, especially with the guitar solos, and you know, those lyrics like "You must give praise to Satan." Like, it's a very memorable song. Brilliant. And then the last track, Crucifixion, perfect closer, just wild and manic. So I've literally described every song on the album, albeit fleetingly, but I just can't express enough how much I love this album. It's absolutely perfect. Raw, energetic, aggressive. It's got everything. So just show you the inner booklet. So yeah, you've got lyrics here and a picture of the band. So it's this is the original lineup: Glenn Benton, Steve Ashheim on drums, and the Hoffman brothers on guitars. Glenn was bass and vocals. And picture of Mr. Benton there with the burned inverted cross in his forehead. And this is like a biography written by Michael Moynihan from Lords of Chaos. And it's interesting, he says at the beginning of this, "Be forewarned, you are about to open a portal into another world, a sonic nether realm where all values are reversed. It is a timeless domain, apparently." That's what it's like. This album is honestly otherworldly. Like, it's got a very, I don't know, like just a otherworldly dimension kind of atmosphere, but completely possessed. It's great. So I just love this album. If for some reason you've never heard this album, definitely check it out. And I will say this, it's possibly my favorite death metal album of all time, but definitely in my top 5. So that's an idea. Maybe one day I'll talk about my top 5 death metal albums, but this is, yeah, it's killer. So definitely check it out. A lot of people, you know, like the later stuff is really good too, and then the mid-period stuff, it's kind of, they slowed it down a bit, but like this is where it's at in terms of best albums for me. So this one and Legion, but anyway, check it out. That's DEICIDE with DEICIDE. All right. Okay, speaking of top 5 death metal albums of all time, here's another one for me. So this is another one I've never shown before. GORGUTS with Considered Dead. An absolute classic in the death metal genre. Like this one came out in 1991 as well. GORGUTS are a band from Canada, and they're still around. Just very respected in the death metal scene. But it's quite funny, I didn't check them out based on reputation. Like, when I was about 14 years old and I first heard death metal at this shop where the guy used to like put on CDs for us, like I remember when I was just very new to it, like the bands I'd heard were like, I think Dismember and cancer at the time, and then he goes, oh, have you heard this new GORGUTS album? It's ace. And like, to be honest, I was going, well, no, because I don't know this music. I was only 14, but he put it on, and I remember some other people coming into the shop going, oh, is this the new GORGUTS album? It's great. Like, this is absolutely brilliant. Like, 10 out of 10 album again. That's why it's in my top 5 of all time. So what's interesting about this band is they just have a lot of atmosphere. It's sort of like, they're not playing at blistering speeds all the time. Often it's like, it's got a very gallopy feel with some of the riffs, and also like ploddingly slow sometimes, but it's just so haunting and dark. Like, what I like about these songs is, coupled with the lyrics, it really paints a picture in your mind of a scenario. Like, it makes you experience the horror which is expressed in the lyrics, and I just love that. Like, and the lyrics really tell a story, which is great. But yeah, like, in terms of the music, just down-tuned guitars, thunderous drumming, like with a lot of double bass work on that. Also, like, the bass is very audible in this, and you hear a lot of like quirky kind of riffs that the bass player is playing, and the vocals are very sort of Creature from the Black Lagoon, that kind of Creature from the Depths vocals, like very low and guttural, but just so well enunciated. That's Luke LeMay. He was the guitarist and lead vocalist. But yeah, again, 10 tracks on this album. It's 10 out of 10. I love every one of them. As I said, the songs are very haunting, and each one tells a story, and they stand apart really nicely. But just so many, like, different speeds and tempos. Like, they're often doomy and slow, but then they have the gallopy parts, and then just some really quirky grooves on this as well. So something to always keep you interested. It's just top-notch death metal songwriting, and this was when death metal was completely fresh, and it's just amazing. Like, again, this is an album like the DEICIDE one, where it doesn't sound dated or aged at all. It just sounds completely fresh. I've been listening to this album for over 25 years. I never get bored of it. All of the songs are brilliant, as I said, so I'm not going to go and rattle off every single name, but some of my absolute favorites would be Stiff and Cold. That's very haunting, and got a great atmosphere, especially that sort of sludgy kind of pace to that song, and the guitar solo in the middle is brilliant. Also, Disincarnated, like very, I will describe every song pretty much. So, and then comes Lividity. That's the acoustic intro before Stiff and Cold, which is like very haunting and foreboding. Then after Stiff and Cold, you've got Disincarnated, which has just got some amazing rhythms on that song, like just like the drum work and also the vocal patterns, like just really cutting edge, amazing stuff, like the way those vocals are performed on that song, Disincarnated. Then Considered Dead, a great song. Like, that's a song which has a bit more gallop, talking about people dying of diseases in the Middle Ages, and people didn't know what was wrong with them, so they couldn't help them. And also, I just love that part of the end of the song, so atmospheric, where it's like, when you're in tune within your mind, you hope and pray. If you could talk, the only things you would say, I'm still alive, please, I'm still alive, don't bury me. And the guitar solo, it's just great. I that always gets me every time, that part of the song. Also, Rotten Anatomy. Yep, I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's like a blend of rotten and anatomy, Rotten Anatomy. But that's a great song. A song, again, telling a story about a guy who's stranded in the jungle and has lost his way, and that feeling of hopelessness setting in, and starving and everything. Like, I don't know, and that sounds, I know it's really depressing. Like, we don't want that to happen in real life, but it just paints that like dark scenario for you so well. And like the lyrics are great in that, but like that middle part of the song again, where it's like really doomy and they've got the slow riffs, they're just so melancholic and depressing, like really capturing that feeling of hopelessness, like of the protagonist in the song. Yeah, but yeah, really good. That's probably my favorite song. Also, so over on side B, Bodily Corrupted, like a great intro to that song with this snare and like this quirky riff before the vocals go like come in, and it's fantastic. Waste of Mortality is an atmospheric, like doomy, depressing kind of instrumental song, which is great. Drifting Remains, really good song as well. And what I like about that song, it's not about guts and gore, it's talking about people going sailing on a boat and then they're met by a storm. So like, again, this morbid theme, but it's an original take on it. So people drowning at sea, again, depressing. No one wants this to happen in real life, but it's painting that picture of a sort of a morbid scenario. So I really like that song. Hematological Allergy is a very good song. Like, the riff at that start, like, like just so groovy. And that song and Bodily Corrupted, I think, they also feature Chris Barnes, then of Cannibal Corpse, doing some guest vocals as well. So he's got the even lower guttural vocals to go with Luke. And then last song, Inoculated Life. That's probably my second favorite song on the album. Like just that that chugging, plodding riff in it, like gory delivery, disgusting mutation, just brilliant, like gets me every time. So I listened to this last week and I listened to it again today. I can't get enough of this album. I never get bored of it, so hence it's in my top 5 death metal albums. So just show you the inner sleeve. So you've got credits and the photo and also lyrics, so very nice. And as for the record itself, this one, which I bought in Thailand, it comes on red vinyl. What would you say? Red or crimson? I don't know. And labels are the same with the logo, but really beautiful. It's great. I often thought that what would be cool if they had this in fluorescent green, because it would match the cover artwork. But maybe that's me being a picky bitch, because this one is still very nice. But I just thought that green one, yeah, that could be a cool variation as well. But yeah, how could you complain about this? Absolutely stunning. So, yeah, really happy to have this. This is definitely one of those albums, like I mentioned in the Rock and Metal Plus video. If I have an album on CD, but it's 10 out of 10 to me, I will also buy the vinyl version. So that's the case with this album. So I've got both. And with this band, they've released quite a lot of albums. There was one which I bought, which I didn't get into that much. That was called From Wisdom to Hate. And there were some decent songs on it, but it just doesn't grab me like the older stuff. But tell me, what are some other Gorguts albums you recommend? The other one I'd really like to get is Erosion of Sanity. But anyway, if you haven't heard this for whatever reason, definitely check it out. It's a masterpiece. Canadian death metal, that's Gorguts with Considered Dead. Okay, so coming up to the last album of the day. This is one I've already talked about before in a collection update as well, so I don't need to go into it much. This is Horrific with Your Worst Nightmare. Alright, so just take it out of the cover. First of all, look at that brilliant artwork. It's very cartoon-like, sort of capturing an 80s horror vibe, sort of like in the vein of those creep show horror films, which I love, by the way. Yeah, so, and interestingly enough, the artwork gives away what this is about. It's sort of like very horror movie inspired lyrics and themes. And yeah, I will read the hype sticker just as an introduction. So they say here, Headbangers is proud to finally reissue Horrific's 2009 debut and only full-length album, Your Worst Nightmare. A bizarre mix of 80s heavy metal, thrash, punk, and death metal. Slasher Dave from Acid Witch and Billy Nocera from Razorback Records and Surgikill created a horror metal album like no other. Songs influenced by horror movies, Eerie Productions comics, and books like Nightmare USA, featuring artwork from Jeff Zano and Adam Gaia, I think. Yeah, so that tells you all you need to know. Basically, horror movie influenced death metal, but it's mixing with other styles like punk, thrash, and heavy metal. And this album is just a ton of fun, like energetic, very catchy. You've got all those different elements, like the sound predominantly, to me, it sounds a bit like death and roll, sort of imagine those Entombed albums like Wolverine Blues, and especially that Swedish death metal guitar tone, like Entombed, it sounds very much like that, but there's obviously other influences like with the punk style and everything, but yeah, really, really great record, like a lot of fast songs on this, and it just doesn't get boring because they're mixing all those different styles together. There's always something to capture your attention, and it's just a catchy, fun death metal album. So really glad I bought this one, actually. This was about, I don't know when did I get this, over a year ago, but yeah, very, very nice. And yeah, 10 songs on this, and I enjoy the whole album. When I'm playing this, I'm just tapping my head along the whole time. Some of my favorite songs though, like the ones which really stand out to me, Brain Drain, just such a catchy chorus, like so hooky. You can't deny that. And then also Dead at Midnight. What's interesting about that song is it features a riff which must be a tribute to Motley Crue, you know, because it sounds a bit like the main riff in Live Wire, you know, the and yeah, and that's fine with me because I love me some Motley Crue, which is great. And also Metal Cemetery has a very memorable chorus. But honestly, all songs on this are just great. So it's just those three I mentioned stand out the most as the catchiest, but the whole thing is very enjoyable. So, show you. Yep, so here you've got the insert. Yeah, nice picture there. And also sheet with the members of the band. So Slasher Dave, all instruments, and Billy Nocera lyrics. And yeah, a nice readable lyric sheet. And the lyrics are quite simplistic actually, but I like that kind of honesty. It's sort of combining 80s horror movies with just like metal oriented themes. Like, give you an example here. Yeah, fretboard attack cranked to the max, this axe was made to shred. Screaming horror fills the graveyard, tonight we rock the dead. So that's Metal Cemetery. So simplistic, but very fun. Yeah, so if you enjoy death metal, I'm sure a lot of you do, and you like something different, like those other styles, like all those other styles they incorporated, punk, heavy metal, thrash metal, I like all of those too. This is definitely a unique and interesting album. Oh, and I nearly forgot to show you, this is the highlight, one of my favorite vinyls. Look at that, on this half-half, what, aqua blue and apple green vinyl, and then stunning label here too. So yeah, this is one of my favorite colored vinyls that I own. Yeah, so, God, I can't believe I nearly omitted to show you that. But, you know, that's what happens when these videos go on for a long time and I get caught up in the babble. So yeah, anyway, if you like death metal with an interesting twist and influences from other genres, check it out. That's Horrific with Your Worst Nightmare. Alright, so I finally got through that. Hopefully I didn't go on too long, but you know, I'm one to describe things in detail, so I guess that's my style. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for sticking around if you managed to see all of it. The next video will probably be that collection update, because there's only 3 albums to talk about in that, and I'm almost through all of them. So that's coming up very soon. I don't think this is going to be my last video of the year, because I still have a lot to talk about, and I will have some more free time with holidays coming up soon. So in the meantime, stay safe and enjoy the December festivities pre-Christmas, and I'll probably check in with you before then. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Cheers.